Good morning, everyone. Welcome to On The Prowl, Aleksander Barkov The Cornerstone, episode 3 with very special guest, Colby Guy. Colby, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, doing very well, Um, he writes for the about the Florida Panthers for the Associated Press, the Palm Beach Post, and he has a new venture called Pucks and Palms, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But I would be remiss not to start our podcast today talking about Johnny Gaudreau. I think anybody who has had anything ever to do with the game of hockey has just been incredibly affected by this horrific tragedy. What are your thoughts about all this, Colby?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell from just everyone's reactions to the terrible news that it's pretty much a brotherhood here in the hockey community, and everybody is affected by this. I mean, you saw the news. I mean, two families are now without fathers, brothers, sons, uncles. And that alone is just tragic, just thinking about it and thinking about the way that somebody just went on the road and selfishly took that away from all those families. But I mean, for everybody in hockey, you're losing a guy who's one of the best personalities in the league. I mean, you can't put on anyone at Johnny's games without him coming to the rink with this big smile and then doing something crazy on the ice. And I mean, that's what brought me to watch Johnny when I was growing up. When he first came in the league, when I was in middle school and high school, I'd always stay up late just to see what kind of physics defying thing he was going to do on the ice. But I think the main thing you want to think about here is the person that Johnny Gaudreau was and the friendships he's built, and obviously his family that he loved so much that he decided to give up what he had in Calgary to go be closer to them when he signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets. But it's very unfortunate, and he's gone way too soon.
Yeah, and I was very hopeful because I'm also a Blue Jackets fan, and I was very hopeful he was going to be a cornerstone of a rebuild for them. They hired a new coach this year who I really like. I think he can finally maybe kind of get them on the right course. There's a lot of things with management I think that need to change there, but they had Johnny there, and Johnny was a nice cornerstone piece for that franchise. And one of the things that was so important about him was he was out there in the community in Columbus. He was shaking hands. He'd run into people. He would stop and take photos with them. He would just the exact opposite of, say, like a Tom Wilson from the Capitals, who everybody disdains. Okay, everybody loved Johnny. Everybody loved him, and and I know, for example, people out in Columbus. And for example, Steve Mears, who's now going to be their TV broadcaster, was with the Penguins for several years in the NHL Network. And I read some of the comments by him, and he remembered watching him when he was with Team USA and the skills he would put on, and the skill, and how he would just excel at, like, the All-Star game. He was in the All-Star game 7 times, and he just had mad skills with stick handling, with the puck. Just it was just incredible. But beyond all that, like you said, he was a husband, he was a father, he was a son, he was a brother, he was just an incredible part of the hockey community. And I think Lanny McDonald put it best. I don't know if you saw the post he put out there from the Flames. He said, take it easy, guys. When you're having some pickup games up in heaven with the guys that are already there. And that was just so fitting. But and I think one of the best things that we can do, I know, and this kind of relates for me. About 4 years ago, I had a friend of mine from high school who was a pediatrician out in Eastern Pennsylvania, just well loved, well respected in the community. Same thing. Well, he was hit on his bicycle. Wasn't a drunk driver, but he was killed. And it's like one of those things that it's a head scratcher. You don't understand. He was just a good person, and I think the best thing that we can do is watch his highlights and be thankful for the time that we had with him and support his family.
Yeah, and as you said on that last part, Matthew's wife has a GoFundMe available. She has a son on the way. It's unfortunate that Matthew's not going to be there for the son, but the hockey community, I think last time I checked, raised about $400,000 for
Yeah.
that GoFundMe. And I mean, I think it's great that everyone's kind of come together to support these guys, but it's just really unfortunate Matthew's not going to be there for his unborn son either.
Yeah, that's incredible. The last thing I want to talk about with this was Johnny's connection with Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, they were incredibly tight.
Yeah, they were. I mean, that one line that they were on in 2021, 22 was one of the best in the league. And I mean, just even when Matthew Tkachuk made his post about Johnny Gaudreau, you didn't even need to read the caption to tell that they were close. They just had so many of those pictures you have with your close friends that you kind of take sometimes and forget about. But it seems like they had a lot of fun together, as did a lot of other guys with Johnny Gaudreau. He's just that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that whenever you it seems from the photos I've seen, he's the type of guy that you hang out with him, you have fun, you have a smile on your face, and it's unfortunate so many people had that taken away from them. And
Yeah.
it seemed like Matthew was the same way too. You gotta remember Matthew Gaudreau as well.
Yes, that's so important, Colby, because while we kind of focus on Johnny, his brother Matthew was every bit as important as him, and it's a devastating loss for the family. It really is, especially it was on the heels of his sister's wedding, and wow, that just you can't put words into it, and and you don't try to sit here, judge, or say anything. You just for example, that GoFundMe, you donate to the GoFundMe, and you go to part of vigils. I know there's been several vigils outside Nationwide Arena in Johnny's memory already, and I know it's really hit a lot of people pretty hard. But the best thing, and I think I don't know if it's irony or what, but the home opener for the Blue Jackets is against the Panthers, and what a especially with Matthew Tkachuk being there, that just is there's just not really a sense of irony, but a sense of destiny, I think.
Yeah, Sam Bennett too. I mean, both Johnny and
Yeah,
Sam Bennett came into the league the same year, and they basically grew up together. So, I mean, this has to be hitting Sam pretty hard. He's definitely in my thoughts personally for after dealing with the guy for 3 years. I haven't really seen him say anything, so I'm hoping Sam's holding up all right. But I mean,
yeah,
that's a
me
guy that
too.
Sam came into the league with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Well, we had 2024 was, I don't want to call it a Cinderella year, but I think we were building up to that with the Panthers. And, I can do a whole episode on Bill Zito, but that's not the focus of today. But I think one of the best things that this franchise has ever done, and one of the most important things they've ever done, was sign Alexander Barkov and get him. And, uh, first of all, what I want to do is I want to look at them by the numbers, and I'm just going to throw this up here real quick because I think it's so important. Alexander Barkov in Panthers history: games played 737 first, goals 266 first, assists 445 first, points 711 first, plus minus plus 123. He's second to Gustav Forling. Power play goals 75 first, power play assists 140. He's second to Jonathan Huberdeau. Power play points 215 first. Shorthanded goals 12, tied for second with Radek Dvorak. Shorthanded assists 7, tied for first. Shorthanded points 19, second, tied with Radek Dvorak. Game winning goals 48 first. Game winning assists 77 first. game-winning points, 125 first. And oh, captain, our captain. You know, and I got to say this, Colby, he has, you know, besides the skills, the one thing I see all the time with him is his vision on the ice. It's just insane. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, you could see him when he was playing with Sam Reinhart last year, especially. I mean, those two clicked because Sasha has eyes on the back of his head pretty much, and he's able to make these plays, thread these passes, and Sam Reinhart was just there to clean up the garbage in front of the net, or he's right there in the slot to get a quick goal, and that connection really lit up the league last year. But I mean, it's just the sheer amalgamation of skills that Barkov has between his defense, which is pretty much all world, like better than most NHL defensemen. Even he's that good at just shutting down each team's number one center. I mean, you saw it throughout the playoffs. I mean, when he was playing against Austin Matthews last year, he couldn't get anything going. When he was playing against David Pastrnak or Nikita Kucherov this year, those guys couldn't get anything going either. And in Game 7, he locked down Connor McDavid. So you have that aspect of his game. And in the offensive zone, he's one of the better playmakers in the league, and he has 40 goal potential. I mean, he flirted with it pretty recently. I think his career high is 39. So you have a guy that could do all these things on the ice very, very well, and that's the cornerstone of your franchise right there.
It really is, and just to watch him play, okay, because I've seen a lot of forwards out there, and I think one of the ones that comes to mind for me, in terms of defensive capabilities and seeing him play, because I got to see him play a lot of Sidney Crosby, because Crosby gets back there, and I've always said I thought Crosby was a better defenseman than Chris Letang. Just the way he would get back and get involved and get in the play and disrupt plays and be there, which is fantastic. And the one thing with Barkov that I think is just absolutely amazing is it's just like he has a sixth sense when he's out on the ice. He has besides the vision, it's timing, and timing is just so incredibly critical, because one of the things that I watched, I went to some games late in Mario Lemieux's career, and he really learned a lot about how to, because his legs weren't there late in his career, about where to position himself on the ice. And I think that's something that Sasha does really well. He knows where to be out on the ice at all times. He doesn't, it's like an automatic reflex. It's like he doesn't even have to think about that.
Yeah, and it goes for both ends of the ice, and he controls the ice pretty well when he's out there. He dictates the pace of play, and when he sees a guy that's open, he's open. And I think he also kind of just he fully fits the identity of what the Panthers are, and that identity is pretty much him as far as just playing a responsible game in the defensive end, don't force anything. And then once you see the cracks kind of start to build up on the other end, you strike. And that's what Barkov's been able to do so well for so long, is he's just able to be the force of the defensive zone, and then just finds a spot to counterattack. And you put a couple of really good players on his wing, and Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Reinhart, they're going to put up a lot of goals. And I mean, you saw that throughout the playoffs as well. I mean, just looking back at Game 7 specifically, I think this game really kind of sums up Sasha Barkov's impact on the Panthers. I mean, when his line was on the ice, 9 times out of 10, they were in possession of the puck, and they were putting the pressure on the Oilers. And those minutes were when Connor McDavid was on the ice. It's the pure forechecking ability that Barkov has. He built up a lot of speed in the offseason after last year's Stanley Cup final loss. Both he and Sam Reinhart both lost a few pounds there, and came into this past season skinnier and faster, and that kind of helped build something between those two guys and build a line that was very tenacious and fast and very unrelenting on the forecheck. And I mean, that's just kind of what you get out of Sasha Barkov. He's an all-world caliber player, and that's what you need to win a Stanley Cup.
You're right. You were so right, Colby. And one of the things that while we're still kind of continuing conversation about Sasha, is I want to take a look at Paul Maurice, and a lot of people would have kind of caved in, after they had the 3-0 lead, and you know what I said, that's one of the worst leads in a series that you can have, because all you got to do is win one more, and but I have to give Paul Maurice so much credit, because the pressure was on him. They ended up losing 3 in a row, although one of those games I think it was game 5 back here, back here at Sunrise, that I thought they played better of those 3 games, but they still ended up losing. He kept his composure and his cool the whole time, and he had them focused and ready for game 7.
Yeah, I mean, you need to have. I mean, Paul Maurice has been in the league for so long now, and after dealing with all he's had throughout his career, I think you just need to come in there, keep a simple approach, and just make sure the boys are ready for a game 7 like that. Because I mean, there's so much pressure on the line when you've blown a 3-0 lead like that, and I mean, it just speaks to the Panthers' game plan as well. Because when you have a game that tight with that much pressure on the line, that's what really helps you in a game 7 like that, where your game is built for those tight games where a lot of teams don't want to make mistakes. Because when you look at the way the Oilers were playing in games 4 through 6, they were playing pretty free, and they were doing things where they're willing to make a mistake here or there, and it proved to be pretty beneficial at the end of the day, scoring multiple shorthanded breakaway goals and some stretch passes off the rush, some things that you wouldn't normally do if you're trying to avoid mistakes, because if someone picks off that pass, that's a chance the other way. But the Oilers were really keen on picking the Panthers apart on the rush, and the Panthers were just playing not to make any mistakes, so that's where the Oilers were kind of able to blitz them at times. So when you put that into game 7, an environment where both teams are trying to play their cleanest, tightest game, and you have the Panthers taking advantage of an early opportunity, I think they were playing the game on their terms and the way they've been playing hockey all year, and that's really where Paul Maurice's system and where he came in to kind of help him win this game.
Well, and I also have to say this too. In game 7, I think Bob kind of lost his focus in 4, 5, and 6, but he regained that in game 7. I mean, he was laser focused in game 7. And those last 2 minutes of game 7, he was making incredible, just typical Bob saves. Okay. We say typical, but because we're used to it, but you hear the announcers going nuts for some of the saves he was making. They were just inhuman, and he really just was so laser focused that in game 7.
Yeah, I mean, he had that one cartwheel save on Connor McDavid. That one's always burned into my memory. And it's the last 2 minutes. He was very, very, very structured in net, and he made some incredible saves. But he was the big hero there in that game 7. He came up with big save after big save and kind of allowed the Panthers to get themselves in a position to win. And I mean, you can't forget about the biggest save of the game from Dmitry Kulikov.
Mm-hmm.
That one, he led to the game-winning goal. So Gotta
Right.
give some credit to Dmitry Kulikov too.
That was an insane save. And you know what? And I heard, and I don't know if it was one of the announcers on Sportsnet or Ray Ferraro. I think Ray Ferraro said, so, almost always, they make great save is made at one end, and then they come down and they score. And, and it was just, yeah, you know what? I had a feeling right then and there that the Panthers were going to score. I didn't know how. I didn't know who was going to do it. And Reinhart was, he sniped it, and it was just a perfect shot. I mean, I've seen that video from all angles of his goal, and it was a perfectly placed shot. Skinner was partially screened on it, and it could not have been better.
Carter Verhaeghe doesn't get enough credit for what he did on that play too. He kind of took the pass there from Kulikov, came up there with Reinhart, fed Reinhart, and then sped up all the way to the front of the net to get the screen off. So, I mean, Carter Verhaeghe did one heck of a job on that play as well. So, I mean, who else but Carter Verhaeghe to come up in that big moment? I mean, after all the big playoff goals that guy's had. So, I don't know. That's just a very perfect way to end the season, a very Florida Panthers way to end the season there. And
Yeah, it really was. Well, and you mentioned Carter Verhaeghe, and I think of all what I call the unsung heroes for the Panthers, like Erod and Verhaeghe, Bennett. These guys just absolutely, are just, heart and soul and keystones and part of the puzzle for the Panthers. And just, I mean, look at all the goals that Erod had, just, timely goals. And I remember watching him when he was in Pittsburgh, and I said, you know what? If he's with the right team, he can excel. Okay. Because, where he was in Pittsburgh was not a good situation. The same with the Rockies. He just was not in a good situation. And he comes to Florida, and it's like a natural hand in glove fit. I mean, he fit into Paul Maurice's system perfectly.
yeah, I mean, any line that he played on and on that team, I mean, he's next to Barkov. He was a pretty good complementary piece to him and Reinhardt. And once the trade deadline came in and Tarasenko bumped him off that line, he really helped Anton Lundell out in his development and was a very good winger on his line. And then you get to the Stanley Cup final. The Panthers try him out next to Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett for the first time, and he catches fire, and he's one of their best players in that series. So, I mean, he's a guy that can just do it all and do it on any line. And so, I mean, he's going to be a valuable asset to have for the next 2 years. And it's a very big piece of that locker room, too, now. He's one of the more vocal guys in that room now, and he obviously took a pretty big leadership role already once he went to Anton Lundell's line and kind of helped him calm down later in that regular season, which kind of allowed them to break out. So, I mean, that's another guy that it's very important to have in your room.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I kind of want to circle back to Sasha again. One of the things I think really helped him in terms of his growth with the Panthers and his maturity was Jaromir Jagr. I can't say enough about that. And the more I think about it, everybody is just, you mentioned Jaromir Jagr, everybody knows. There were two, I think, cornerstone pieces or pieces to the puzzle that helped push the Panthers over the edge to get them to the Stanley Cup and win the Stanley Cup. And he was one of them. And then the other one was another former Penguin, Patrick Hornquist. They were so instrumental in getting a right attitude, a leadership role. I think Sasha became a leader after his time with Jagr. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, Jagr pretty much took Sasha under his wing in his time here. And, I mean, you talk to Sasha about it, but seeing the way that Jagr, even at the ripe old age of, I think it was 45 at the time, he's 50 or older now, but the way that he prepares himself, the way he gets onto the ice very early and gets to work, he's in the weight room all the time. But to see the way that guy presented himself and the way that guy came in, very late in his career and helped this Panthers team make the playoffs. I think that's just something that kind of helped Sasha get that mindset, and that's where it clicked. And Hornquist kind of did that for the rest of the group. A lot of those other younger guys, like a Verhage, a Forsling, especially those two, Hornquist and Forsling, were pretty close, both being Swedish. So both those guys definitely set some kind of culture there. With Yager, it was creating those leaders that are Barkov and Ekblad as well. Those are your two cornerstone guys that he kind of helped build up, and Hornquist kind of did the rest for the rest of the guys Zito brought in.
He sure did. And one of the things that you hear, and that repeating as Stanley Cup champions is probably one of the most difficult tasks in the world. I mean, you look at it in all of sports, and the old moniker is true. It is the toughest trophy to win in all of sports because of what you have to go through in the playoffs. I mean, having to win 16 games, I mean, it is not easy. I mean, it's a grind. There's a lot to it. So what are your thoughts about the upcoming season, Colby? Do you think the Panthers have a chance to repeat?
I mean, you look at the way this team's built, and obviously the style of play that they play. I mean, this is a team that is built to win in the playoffs. They've done it the past 2 years, getting to the Stanley Cup final last year. The only thing is, I mean, they've played a lot of hockey the past 2 years, and maybe that could end up catching up with them in the playoffs this year. We'll have to see about that. But when you just look at who's returning and the style of play they play and how things line up, I mean, they're going to be one of the better teams in the league next year as well. There are a couple things that they have to work out next year, like the power play, because they're losing both Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Brandon Montour, and that leaves a pretty big gaping hole on that power play one. And whether it's a Gustav Forsling that fills in, and Aaron Ekblad, or maybe even Adam Boquist, they're going to have to figure that out and see what works on the power play. And then when it comes to defense, I mean, Brandon Montour logged a lot of minutes on that back end too. So they're going to have to hope Schmidt and Boquist come in there and kind of help fill that void by the committee. I mean, you're not going to get one guy that's going to log 25 minutes a night anymore on the second pairing. You're going to have to split those second and third pairings out a little bit more. But those are the two main concerns. The penalty kill also got a little bit worse with Kevin Stenlund gone. But between Anton Lundell and some of these other centers they brought in, I think they can fill that void pretty nicely. I mean, they still got Itulos Terrain in there, who was a very big part of that pairing as well. Barkov and Reinhart were a very good pairing on the penalty kill as well. So they didn't lose as much on the penalty kill, but Kevin Stenlund's still a hell of a player and deserves to be listed off there. So we'll have to see what happens, but they have a shot.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling people. I said, I said chances are good. They'll be in a position. They'll be in the hunt. Okay, to coin a term, because it's always, like I said, it's always a grind. It's always something that especially everybody's gunning for you the next season because you're Stanley Cup champions. And I know the last repeat was the Penguins in 16 and 17, and it was a grind. And you lose people to free agency, especially Brandon Montour. And I mean, good luck and God bless in Seattle. I mean, and obviously, he needs to take care of himself, and financially speaking as well. And that just wasn't going to work for the Panthers for getting him back. But I think some of the pickups that Zito has done, he's done admirably well. I said to a friend of mine, I said, he's a great bargain basement shopper. He finds a lot of these guys like Boquist. He finds a lot of them out there, and they fit in the system. They fit in here with the Panthers and with the way, the style and tactics of their play. And the one thing I think that's really good for me is I really like what Paul Maurice has done with their system, and he's gotten the players to buy into the system. And when you have a coach that gets players to buy into the system and they play that way, your chances for success are great. I agree with you about the power play. I think that's going to be, I think, a key for them this year. If somebody can step up and take Montour's place, especially, and Ekman Larson, I think that's going to really make a difference for them. Who knows? Got a lot to look forward to. I mean, it's going to be an exciting season. I think, I'm excited. I know you're excited as well. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about here to kind of wrap things up is, you have a third venture that's coming up, and I really wanted to spend some time talking about that because I subscribed to it last night, and it's just great. I really like what you're doing here, Pucks and Palms. And why don't you enlighten us about Pucks and Palms here, Colby?
Yeah, so that's gonna be where the bulk of my work's gonna be this next year. So it's a newsletter service on Substack, and you can also look at it on the website as well. You can look through all the articles that I've written so far. But I launched it last week, and I've already been running through player by player previews on each player heading into training camp. We're gonna have monthly mailbags, some analysis pieces, and some more things that I'll share with you guys as well. But it's going to be exciting, and it's nice to have a central hub for all of my work there at Pucks and Palms. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I subscribe to it. Already looked through several of your articles, and just absolutely fantastic. And just want to remind people out there to go ahead and subscribe to it. And and it's a bargain to get good quality reporting like we do here from Colby. And it's just some great thoughts, analysis. Just kind of to wrap things up here, Colby. I mean, for me, just to let you know, I started following the Panthers in 2013. I moved from Ohio down to Florida when I got married in 2011. But in 2013, my wife and I drove down to Sunrise to catch a game down there. And, I was just so impressed with, first of all, with the parking, with the arena, just the whole atmosphere there, and then just the way they played, and just even back then. And I thought, you know what, this is a franchise that is on the move. They're going upward. They're going, they're going to go places. They were built for success, and things have gotten, obviously to the point where they won the Stanley Cup, and I'm really looking forward to it. I ended up, I'm a partial season ticket member. We're going to be driving down from Tampa and taking some vacation time to do that. So that's going to be fun. We're looking forward to that. So guys, just thank you so much, Colby, for your time on the show today. We really appreciate that. And please, guys, make sure you subscribe to Colby's new venture. I think that's going to be great. You think you're going to get a lot of great content, and you'll find out a lot about your Florida Panthers. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And as always, it's a great day for Florida Panthers hockey. Take care.